Hey everybody, it's Bruce with Nature Calls, and I'm out here to do a review and set up the Hilleberg Tarra. It's a black label tent in the Hilleberg line, so that means it's one of their toughest tents they can put out there. Especially, it is the toughest for like expeditions without getting into big group tents. They have the black label, which is this. It's made of Kerlon 1800, which is the fabric. It's a triple silicone on both sides, waterproof fabric. And it's just, even if it gets a hole in it, it won't tear. You can get a sample from Hilleberg. If you write them, they'll send you samples, and you try and tear it, can't do it. But they've got bigger poles, they got bigger lines, all around. It's just a much tougher tent. So this is where you'll see people like going to Antarctica or up on Everest will go with this. It's got 10mm poles. But I really think this is a unique tent. It's a 2-person, 4-season tent. It has a double dome. I'll show you that in a bit, what that means, but you get lots of straight up and down room, 2 people inside here. If you put 2 dome tents together, it would just be this big, long, kind of like a shape of a VW bus. That's really great. It's got 2 vestibules on each end. Now I'll put all the specs down below on what it is, but I think it's a little over 9 pounds 4 ounces. So if you're looking for an ultralight summer tent, this is not going to be it. But if you think about 9.4 ounces, and this is really going to be in the big snow loads and heavy driving rain and blizzards, this is just the cat's pajamas as far as tents. So we'll go over a little bit more on 4-season and the differences of fabric weights and all that. But let's go and show you how to set her up. Here you can see the heavier duty vinyl that they use on their seams, where their clips are connected, where all their guy lines are connected. Everything's just top notch. Luckily it's not windy out. You should always be real diligent about your bags, put them in your pocket. When you start practicing with your tent, you kind of get to a point where you know where the doors are all the time. You set it up, but you'll never know when you're going to have to set it up in some serious weather. What I'm trying to do right now is find the vestibule end. How I did that was right here. There's a Hilleberg label there. You want to find the vestibule ends, and find out which one would be the best one to stake out. Say if you're having to encounter a lot of wind, so you'd want to stake out this end if the wind was coming from my back, and then work your way down to the poles. But that's where this tent does need some stakes. It is freestanding in the middle portion of it, because it's a dome tent in the middle, but then the vestibules are stakeouts. Love how they put their, so this is the tent pole bag, and in the tent pole bag there's a spare pole section, and there's a sleeve if you just have a broken pole. But it's kind of cool, they put their stakes are right at the top. They supply all the stakes, and since this is a black label tent, you get the Y peg. This ground's pretty hard, and I didn't bring a hammer, but let's see if I can get it in there. Normally you want to get it all the way up to the top. It's frozen ground. So as I was walking out here, I probably could have picked up a rock or something to pound it in. We've got it. Now here's where the adjustments are. You want those adjustments out as far as possible. Now I could stake down the other end, but I'm going to go ahead and put the poles in, and I'll show you how that all works. Each of the pole sleeves has a colored indicator tape on it, so whatever I put in this sleeve. Then I'll have a corresponding white tape on the other side. This year you can see this short sleeve that they put on this style tent in all of their freestanding dome style tents, where it's not a full sleeve going over the top of the tent like you'd see on their tunnel tents. And I really like this design. So what you do is you keep that low profile, if it's windy, low all the way. Make sure that's all the way down into the seat. Here you can see the fabric is a little bit stronger than the Kerlon 1800, which is so cool. A little bit stronger for the pull sleeve, and definitely a big vinyl cup down the bottom. You want to make sure the pull's all the way in there. Let me get all the rest of the pulls in and we'll keep going. Now, some people do ask me what poles, in what order would you put your poles up? And I would put these two poles up, the ones that are more longitudinal with the tent. So if it was really windy, if the wind was coming from this end, these two I could put up. If it was super windy, I could even start guying it out here on the front. If it was super windy and I needed that kind of help, go ahead and wrap it on that, guy it out, even put a couple clips on, and then bring the other poles in. But yeah, I do these longitudinal poles first. I do have some friends, Nick and April Davis, who have this same tent, and they might have some better insight. I know they've had this tent up on Mount Rainier and all. What they would do in a high wind. I'm sure there's plenty of other owners that can clue us in. So once you get to this point here, say the wind is coming this way, then if you haven't already, you can tie the guy line around, the two poles and start guying it out. And you can guy this out, you know, wherever you need the tension. Once we've got it where we like it, we can start clipping this onto the poles, clip a couple, and then if it's windy, you don't have to do this necessarily if it's not windy, start clipping a few at a time onto the poles and start bringing up the tent a little at a time. If it's really windy, you wouldn't have to do that if it was just dead air like it is right now here. Isn't this neat how this starts to come up? So actually, so here's where the rain fly is. This would have been the windward end for me. So when you're trying to put the rain fly on, it would just fly over with the wind. And they probably have the doors and everything set up that way too, because Hilleberg really thinks out all the little designs when they're putting these things together. All the little things that will help a mountaineer in the worst conditions. They've kind of incorporated it in. It's really not obvious when you're just looking at tents what kind of designs, factors, and ideas have gone into it. Yeah, so when we get it to this point, just give it a little bit of a lift and stake it out. Now with these tensioners, we can go ahead and do that final tensioning on the tent. Make it look real nice. Here we have the Vectran line, and the Vectran line is a 3mm line, and it's heavier duty than they have on their red labels and their blue labels, or not their blue labels, the red labels and their yellow labels. But here they have nice little line locks. We'll tighten that out. We don't want to deform the poles at all, but we want to give them some nice support. And of course, you can stake out the base of the tent as well. Okay, so out here on the outside of the tent at the very top, you have this black panel here, and this black panel actually is breathable. It's not all waterproof or siliconized like this outer red fabric. This black fabric is actually starting to breathe, so the internal condensation is starting to come through that. This can also be opened all the way up for maximum ventilation, and that's covered when it's stormy out with this rain fly that has real simple little hooks on it. Adjust it out. So we just hook that. Hook this other side. Tighten it up a little bit. And then that starts adding to the overall structural rigidity of the tent as well. And now we're getting real solid, but you still have plenty of air that's getting up in here. It's sealed off up here, but it's definitely getting lots of airflow, and so you're getting that condensation out, and you can even start guying it out even more. So now you can see this little heavier duty fabric for the sleeves, and down at the bottom you have even more heavier vinyl down there. But here they've done this really nice where everything's sewn together with this heavier duty vinyl, and they also sew it. When I manufacture, I know they only do it so many stitches per inch, and they really try and not harm the ripstop. Now we're going to guy this out and just pull it until it's giving some nice structure. Here we have one of the doors to the vestibule. And it's got this nice cover over the top. Nice big zippers. Bring that up to there, and then you can roll it back. And tie it off, and then you can get your gear stowed right away. And then here is the inner. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Now another thing you can do is keep opening this up over here. We're going to take off this band, roll it up even more. Now if you want even more ventilation, we've got even more, but then we can keep going with this. And zip it all the way. So here we can see where the inner is a nice nylon as well, and it's suspended off the outer with these elastics. So if you need to, you can remove this whole inner part and even have more room. But here we can see the Kerlon 1800, the red on the outside, and it is triple silicone impregnated, so it's waterproof. And the inside isn't waterproof, but it's been treated with a DWR. Now here you see where the four-season tent will have the inner like this, where you can still, even if blowing rain or snow gets in here, this can be completely sealed up as fabric, and so it's another line of defense. Or if it's summer, you can unzip this inner flap and get the mosquito netting. You get this double dome effect in here, where it's high here, nice straight door here, really straight, almost straight over there. So I can now sit in the middle, head high, and then I can sit at the other end head high because of this double dome configuration. So for 2 people, you get a ton of room in here, a ton of workable space. Up here you have some line for drying stuff, but here's that inner vent. So if it's humid in here, you can unzip this vent, and here you have a bug netting, so you can start letting out more ventilation. If you need even more, you can unzip that bug net. So now you're getting complete through, so if you don't have any bugs, you can really get rid of your ventilation. And then here's that upper vent that's on the outer part of the tent. And if you really need tons of ventilation, you can undo that, and it's now covered with the rain fly, so now you're getting tons and tons of ventilation to get out any humidity at all. There we go, lots of room for 2. Got pockets.
I like the pockets.
Like the pockets. And the bathtub floor is a higher density, and so you can, I've seen plenty of pictures where this is actually sitting in water and people aren't getting wet. Very nice. You see how that it's more with the double dome. It's more. You got even more room for a dome tent. It's pretty nice. All right, thanks a lot. That is the Hilleberg Tarra, and time to get out of here and maybe head up to those mountains. See you on the trail. Bye now.